will be master of ceremonies for the induction tonight.
All right, good evening, everyone. And I'm representing CQ Magazine this evening, and want to thank everyone for helping us honor our two new inductees to the Contest Hall of Fame. The CQ Magazine Contest Hall of Fame started in 1986, and the idea was to recognize those amateurs who not only excel in their personal contesting performance, but also people who give back something to the hobby. And some of the previous nominees, some of their contributions, they brought new people into the hobby. They formed radio clubs, they've written books or articles, they've taken the time to be contest judges, work on contest committees, that kind of thing. They've really helped develop the sport. And so it's more than just being a great operator. You have to be a great human and somebody who's really a great radio amateur, a radio sportsman to get this award. How many people were here or were in attendance in the original 1986 Hall of Fame presentation to K2GL? So I see. That's kind of amazing. So there's like 20 guys here that were at that very specific thing in 1986. And that was put together, the catalyst for it was because K2GL was not well, and the guys really wanted to recognize him. And I know it was a really fantastic evening for or afternoon for everybody who was there. So Mark, Aakers is going to present our first inductee. So Mark, there you are. So just one thing while Mark's pulling his mind together. Just a little bit of background. These nomination process for the Hall of Fame is you send the nominations in to CQ Magazine before March 1st each year. The nominees are voted on by the CQ Magazine contest directors. And probably one of the key things, and the reason I want to mention this, nominations are not held over to the next year. So you have to keep resubmitting your people. And it always pains me when we're only allowed to bring in 2 people each year, and there's oftentimes 3 or 4 really great candidates, and they're not resubmitted the following year. So if you've been trying to get somebody in, just keep trying so that they get a chance to be recognized. I want to make sure everybody was aware of that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Randy. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mark K6 UFO, and I'm really pleased to be here tonight to say a few words about our friend Ed Muns, W0YK. Ed started as a 6 actually in California, but he moved to Colorado and was working at Hewlett-Packard there, and that's where he got the W0 call sign. He eventually moved back to California, good for you, Ed, and completed 30 years working for Hewlett-Packard Company. He and his wife then started a winery in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and Muns Vineyard has been producing award-winning wines ever since. There's a few bottles there, but I'm afraid they're empty already. Ed was already an accomplished DX operator and a contest operator when I first met him at the Northern California Contest Club. And Ed's DXCC totals are somewhere above 330. He'd been on trips to Japan, Syria, Jamaica, Galapagos Island, and of course Aruba. Ed was very skeptical in 2003 when we first tried to convince the Northern California Contest Club to get on the air in the club competition for RIDI in the ARRL RIDI Roundup. But to support his club, Ed got on and tried RIDI. I think he was really going to prove to us how silly and boring RIDI was. It turned out he actually enjoyed it. He won the Pacific Division that first time out, and he went on to explore it some more. He eventually took his interest in RIDI operating down to Aruba, where he operates as a P49X, P49 X-ray. He's won over 24 first place wins in the various RIDI contests. He set up the world record over 12 times from there. But it's not just that he's a great contest operator. He also became the contest director for the world's largest RIDI contest, the CQ Worldwide RIDI Contest, the CQ WPX RIDI Contest. In addition, he also manages the North American Sprint RIDI Contest. He helped co-found the 10-meter RIDI Contest just 2 years ago, which has become a very popular contest. Ed also teaches at Contest University, teaches at DX University, gives presentations to lots of clubs. He's always willing to talk to anyone about RITI or CW operating. Very helpful in that regard. Once in a rather nostalgic moment, I told Ed I wanted to give back a little more to this hobby, which has meant so much to many of us. Ed immediately put me to work typing in paper logs and fixing it. Problem solved. So I'm very pleased to be here tonight to celebrate with you as we induct Ed Muns, W0YK, and P49X into the CQ Contest Hall of Fame.
On behalf of the worldwide contest community, I'm pleased to present to Ed Muns, W0YK, in recognition of his extraordinary and unselfish contributions to the sport of amateur radio contesting, this plaque to signify his membership in the Contest Hall of Fame.
Well, thank you, Randy. Mark, that was a bit much. Thank you so much. And CQ magazine, as well as the contest directors. I've known about this for a couple of weeks, which is an advantage that some of the previous members of the Hall of Fame didn't have, and I'm still mostly speechless. Actually, I'm sure Randy's glad to hear that, because he's been telling me all week if I go over 5 minutes, he's going to take the plaque back. So, seriously though, I'm just very sincerely touched, but I'm also astounded to be included in this group, and I'm delighted to be on the podium here with Sailor Scott on the same night. It's just been great. But what really puzzles me is, why do you get an award for having fun? No, this is just amazing. And radio sport is amazing. We've heard a lot already tonight about it, but it boggles my mind that this sport, we take a competitor, and he goes and finds another competitor, and then they form a team for a couple of seconds to create a QSO. Has to be valid. They try to do it quickly. They're competitors, but they're working together. They're cooperating to build that QSO. Then they go off and repeat this. And at the end, we line everybody up by who cooperated the most. These are competitors, but they're all lined up from top to bottom about who produced the most cooperation. I think that's just amazing. I don't know, maybe we can find bird watching or some other analogy, but I haven't found it yet. I think it's just great. And I think if you go outside the contest, everything that we do inside the contest, that model of cooperation and working together, is what really carries, at a macro sense, radio sport forward. It's all the things that that Doug talked about in examples with WRTC. But it goes the whole range. Somebody just answering somebody on an email reflector. They have a question, and you help them out. You help them, with their antenna. You sponsor a plaque in a contest. There's a whole range of things that we can do, and as a community, all of those things add up big time. It may seem small, and you may think that it doesn't make any difference, so I won't do it. But each and every one of us does a few of those as we go along. Those plus all the big things that are being done. Just ham radio and radio sport in particular is going to be absolutely unstoppable. Now, as I've watched the Hall of Fame evolve over the years, I really admire all the members that have come in. And I found a lot of inspirational things. One of the things that is particularly inspirational is that these guys don't stop. They're doing more after they were inducted into the Hall of Fame than beforehand. And it's just amazing. It just keeps going. It's a momentum that builds and goes and goes and goes. So I hope that all of us, people here and in the worldwide, can continue to do whatever they can, whether it's giving a presentation at a club meeting or whatever, to help all of us move this forward. I thank everyone here and everybody worldwide that's made radio sport so meaningful for me. Thank you.
And congratulations again, Ed. Absolutely well deserved. So I'm very honored to move on to our next inductee. Have two really great Americans who've really dedicated a large portion of their life to serving our country, and also in many ways to serving the interests of our hobby. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Ed Giambastiani, Admiral G, as President Bush would call him, and I can see why, because I'm saying that name, to introduce Scott Redd. Ed.
Thank you, Randy, and good evening to everybody here. My congratulations to Vintner Ed on this well-deserved award. Well done, Ed. I'm very pleased to be here tonight to be able to say a few words about my longtime friend and my shipmate, Scott Redd, for a well-deserved award. Scott fortunately got me back into contesting after I retired from the Navy, and I thank him very much, and actually so does my wife, because Donna, his wife, and my wife have a lot of fun when we go to Aruba, so I can tell you thank you, Scott. And Randy, I'm going to get started right away, and I promise you I will not exceed my 30 minutes.
There's a typo there.
Let me tell you a little bit about Scott's background right now, and give you a little bit of history, because I think it's pretty interesting here, and you'll see some intersections. Scott was first licensed in 1954 as KN0DQI at the ripe age of 10. He's contested, albeit with gaps due to his government service, over a span of 60 years. Early on, the intersection of his hobby, our hobby, and a soon-to-be military career took place in 1959 in his hometown in Iowa. Scott had an interesting QSO with somebody by the name of Butch, QTH Offutt Air Force Base. His call was K0DWC, and it occurred on 20-meter backscattering from Iowa. Butch closed by inviting Scott during this QSO to stop by and visit him at Offutt Air Force Base. Sometime later, Scott's uncle was driving around with several of Scott's cousins in Iowa. Now, there's not much to do in Iowa, so you just drive around. I'm from a farm town myself. Scott happened to mention this conversation with Butch to his uncle. So his uncle said, let's go to Offutt Air Force Base, and they took off and unannounced appeared at the front gate. This merry band arrived at that main base gate unannounced, said they wanted to meet with Butch Griswold, K0DWC. You can imagine the progression of events with the gate guard there. It went from a smirk initially to standing more erect to smiling and waving them through the gate shortly after successive phone calls up the chain of command. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, Butch Griswold was an Air Force Lieutenant General and the Vice Commander of the Strategic Air Command. Pretty amazing story. Butch gave Scott, his uncle, and the cousins the Cook's tour, including the underground command center at Offutt Air Force Base. Scott left this determined that he was going to enter the United States Air Force Academy. Now, a year later, Scott's congressman called back and said that he did not have an appointment to Air Force, but he had one available to Navy. And the fortunate thing is, for the Navy and for the nation, Scott went to the Naval Academy. You know the rest of the story, but I'll tell you a little bit more in a few minutes. Now, for the main reason why we're here tonight, let me talk to you about some of his contesting highlights, because they're pretty amazing. In 1973, he became the first contester to make 10,000 QSOs as a single operator in a major contest, as 6J9 Alpha Alpha in ARL DX single sideband, setting an all-time 2-weekend record for that contest. In 2013, he became the first amateur to make 5,000 QSOs as a single operator from the United States. In fact, 5,362 QSOs in ARL DX CW, setting an all-time US and world record for ARL DX. The QSO record was further extended from the United States with 5,764 in the 2013 CQ Worldwide CW. In 2008, he became one of the first 2 amateurs, along with Tom, W2SC 8 Papa 5 Alpha, to win world championships as a single operator in each of the 6 major worldwide contests, both modes of CQ Worldwide, CQ WPX, and ARL DX contest. Pretty amazing. Now, going back to the 1971-72 contest season, he won the world in 4 of then the 5 major contests at a time once again as a single operator, all band entrant, operating again from Mexico, a 2-point location for CQ contests. Then, after a long absence with government service, in 2002, Scott returned to contesting and won the world at CQ WPX CW, again single operator, as Papa 41 Papa from Aruba. A final single operator world championship came in 2008 as Papa 40 Quebec in CQ Worldwide CW. All told, Scott has won 12 all-band world championships and 8 all-band US titles. 15 of those are for CW, and Scott complains about single sideband, yet he's won 5. All of these contests, with the exception of 3, were as a single operator. Scott, as you already have seen, will be competing in the 2014 WRTC as a partner with KE3 X-Ray. At 69, he is the oldest competitor representing the United States and one of the 4 oldest competitors overall. Just like a good Cabernet, Ed, Scott gets better with age. Now, let me just, as I finalize these introductory comments, let me say a few words about Scott's government service. Scott served 36 years in the United States Navy, rising to the rank of Vice Admiral. He commanded 8 organizations during this time frame, and amazing organizations, including carrier battle groups, and he founded the United States 5th Fleet in the Middle East. Following retirement, he served as a chief executive officer of a high-tech education company in Silicon Valley. Later, as a senior civilian official and presidential appointment, he served as a deputy administrator, chief operating officer of the Coalition Provisional Authority, the multinational organization governing Iraq, in 2004. He was the executive director of the Presidential Commission on Intelligence Capabilities of the United States regarding weapons of mass destruction, better known as the WMD Commission. He was the first Senate-confirmed director of the United States Counterterrorism Center, the organization established after 9/11, and frankly, as a result of the work he did as an executive director, to coordinate the intelligence and strategic planning efforts of the entire U.S. government aimed part of the global war on. In 2009, President Bush presented Scott on his retirement from the NCTC with the National Security Medal for his lifetime of service to the nation. Just to put this in perspective now, he was the 83rd recipient of this award in its 60-year history. Previous recipients included General Wild Bill Donovan, founder of the World War II OSS, the forerunner of the CIA, and also J. Edgar Hoover, first director of the FBI. Finally, in 2013, just last year, Scott was honored as the 62nd recipient of the United States Naval Academy's Distinguished Graduate Award. There have been 60,000 graduates in the 160 years of history of that institution, and he was the 62nd one to be awarded this. Finally, Scott is very lucky to be married to Donna. She is XWN1NTB, his bride of 44 years. And oh, by the way, how many wives have ever built an SB 101? Pretty amazing. How did you do that, Scott? Scott is a humble man, as most of you know, except when he's trash talking with GD, John Crivelli. Please join me in congratulating Scott Redd on this very important and well-deserved award. Thank you.
Once again, on behalf of the worldwide contest community, it's my great pleasure to award to Admiral Scott Redd. We even got his title in here on the plaque. Admiral Scott Redd, K0DQ, in recognition of his extraordinary and unselfish contribution to the sport of amateur radio contesting. Welcome him to the Contest Hall of Fame.
Wow. All right, quick radio check. Can you hear me in the back? 595? Got it, thank you. All right, well, what a great night. Ed, thank you very much for being here. Checks in the mail. Great introduction. I think everybody here knows, but just in case you don't, Ed Giambastiani is the former Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star Admiral, the second ranking officer in the entire U.S. military. And not only that, he mentioned the Distinguished Graduate Award. Ed is the most recent graduate, or most recent awardee of the Distinguished Graduate from the U.S. Naval Academy for 69. So, well done, Ed. Special pleasure to be up here with Ed Muns. Ed is, heaven's sakes, I always thought of contesting as a two-mode thing, and now it's a triathlon. And there's the guy that has done it. Well-deserved. It's nice to have a W0 here. I didn't realize your roots were a little less honorable than that from W6. This is an East Coast group, maybe. All right. Well, wow. What an honor. This is a very special event for me. I remember being here 3 years ago and speaking on a podium. I never thought I'd be back, but this is a truly humbling experience. You know, a lifetime award like this, just as the DGA was, sort of brings back this incredible flood of emotions. But two of them always stand out. The first one is gratitude. You realize just how incredibly indebted you are to so many people. And the second one really is, you know, a sense of nostalgia, but the good kind of nostalgia. Warmth, you know, joy. You just go back and you remember all the events that happened, and you savor all of those events that you might not have had time to think about when the event was actually going on. So you'll have to indulge the old sailor for a few minutes here. I'm going to make a few acknowledgments to some people. and a few quick reflections. The gentleman in California has yielded a certain amount of his time to me, so John said I had 60 minutes, but cut it back, so it'll be about 50 probably. First of all, I'm grateful to CQ Magazine. As you know, CQ's had a rough spot here recently, but we hope they're coming back. It's hard for many of us to imagine contesting without CQ Magazine. Not only do they do sponsor this award, however, they also, as you know, sponsor most of the contests, or many of the contests upon which the award is based. And we all owe a great debt of gratitude to the contest directors, Ed, Randy, two of them sitting right here, Terry Zibney, does WPX, Andy Blank, of 160-meter fame, Steve Bolia does the VHF, and also the Legion of Volunteers who are behind the scenes, who not only make sure that the contest happens, but this is critical, they also make sure the integrity of the results is there. And that's an awful lot of work to do that, but the results wouldn't mean much if it wasn't for that. And that's true for every contest. We owe that sort of gratitude, whether it's the ARRL for the DX contest, the Thursday night sprints, which Tree keeps telling me I need to try, and all the other contests, the weekly or the state QSO parties. Secondly, I'm very grateful to Potomac Valley Radio Club. We've got at least one table here. That's been my home club for the last 40 years. I had the privilege of knowing and learning from some of those legends. W3 GRF was my personal mentor. Vic Clark was an old friend, and so that's been a very special thing. Lenny was the first PVRC member, W3 GRF. He was number 6 back in the early days. And now I'm looking forward to WRTC. With KE3X, Ken is president of PVRC. As you noted, I'm the oldest competitor from the United States at 69 years of age. So I set some very high goals, Doug, I want you to know this, very high goals, and I told Ken, I committed to Ken that I would stay awake for at least 18 of the 24 hours. And after hearing you talk tonight, I'm going to do it for 20. You know, Danny came on TO, told me that should be good enough to win, so you gotta know. And I'm not supposed to drool either. So. I'm also grateful for all the friends who made it possible. That's a long list, and the list was made a lot longer because of my profession. We moved every year or two, and rarely had my own station, sometimes a small station, but really it's an incredible amount of people. Frank Donovan, W3LPL, introduced me to Lenny many years ago, and whenever I could sneak out of the Pentagon or away from a ship, for about 25 years, I'd run down to Lenny's on a Friday night and hope nobody would call over the weekend, and some of those worked out, some of them didn't. Joe Ogren, W4RX, formerly W4YHD, lets me use this station, and a bunch of people in Aruba, including, where's Carl? Carl and Sue. Carl and Sue. Carl had a tough spot, but he's coming back, and we're delighted to see you and hear Sue here from Aruba, and thank you for all you've done. Later on here, more recently, I've been privileged to drive some big ships up in New England. Do you know there was an aircraft carrier up there? Kilo Charlie 1 X-ray X-ray. I used to got to operate there once. You ever try to do a single op operation from a multi? It's called single op, 2 radios, 8 chairs. You have to move around all the antennas over here, and that was fun. More recently, the battle cruiser up in Maine, which you might know as K8PO. Paul Over's been very gracious to me, and that's been a lot of fun. And of course, if you read CQ, the article, we've had an incredible time with Woody Beckford up in Battleship New Hampshire, WW1WW, so that's been fun. Closer to home, I'm very grateful, as Ed said, and I hope this is being filmed, Donna, to my wife, 45 years. She wanted to be here tonight, but couldn't. She did build an SB 101, and she's given me more hall passes, or Liberty cards, to go do contesting than I deserve. But I think she's trying to tell me that after WRTC, I want to be confined to quarters for a while. And finally, in a serious note, I'm grateful to God. For the opportunities that He's given me, for the good health to enjoy them, and for good health. And those of us who I'm approaching my 70th year, we don't take that for granted, as you all know. Now, in addition to gratitude, as I said, this sort of brings back a bunch of memories. So I'm an analyst at heart, And I went to the websites. If you haven't been to the CQ or WPX websites recently, you owe it to yourself to go. It made it incredibly easy. Randy and N2NC, I think M3C, some other guys have gone through there. You can go back to the late 40s and see all the CQ worldwide results. Some of them are tabulated and some of them are still, it's all right there. It's kind of interesting when you go back. There's a wealth of data there, and let me just give you one tidbit. Who do you think has won the most CQ worldwide contests from the United States? Both modes, phone and CW, single operator. Well, if you've been looking up here tonight, you pretty well got the thing wrapped up. Mr. K1AR has 15 wins. K5ZD has 14 wins. The surprising one, actually, is who has number 3. It goes back to the 1960s. My mentor, W3GRF, Lenny had 7 wins. They were all CW. W1KM is 4th, and Vic Clark, W4KFC, going back to the 50s and 60s, is tied for 5th place. So it's pretty amazing. For me personally, when I retired from the Navy, I decided I wanted to pick up where I'd been. As Ed had sort of mentioned, go back to Mexico. I'd won 4 out of the then 5 major contests. I decided to do 2 more. A lot of helping folks down in Aruba. Finally made that in 2008 and took care of that. Then they decided it kind of needed a new challenge. And by the way, as Ed noted, I got some very nice publicity back in 2008. It's the first, probably being the operative word, first person to win all 6 of the major contests. But when I started doing the spreadsheets, it became very obvious that Tom Georgians beat me by a year. And now, Trice Talk, where are you, John? Where's Crivelli? Crivelli's the 3rd member of that thing. So there's a lot of room at that table if you want to work in a world championship for the top 3 events. You got to get out of the war. Go down and work on that. So I tried to do this thing called the Grand Slam from the United States, and looking for a new challenge. And because of my years, I couldn't do phone anymore, so it was going to be sort of a CW Triple Crown only. Worked out, got 2 of those, but I'm still looking to win CQ worldwide, CW from the U.S. Come close, but no cigar. But for the second time, we'll notice what Randy said at Contest University, and that really is that you learn that this is really more about the journey than it is about the destination. Yeah, I'm competitive, and I like to win, but I've had more joy and more fun going back, analyzing the last contest, and strategizing and figuring about the next one. Well, all that is kind of prologue to my last comment here, last conclusion. After all that analysis, all that deep thought, I came to the end of the contester's metaphysical journey. Big words, right? Everybody has to confront this sooner or later. I came face to face with that existential question that every contester has to ask himself or herself. For those of us in the United States, the question usually pops up about 0900 Zulu on Sunday morning, the contest weekend. That's when your body is screaming for sleep. The rotator box starts talking to you in a foreign language which you don't recognize. Monkeys start jumping around. And the question is very simple. Why? Why the hell do we do this? Why do you all do it? You're all here. There's 500 of us here. We're all crazy. We do it. What kind of a mental or psychological addiction or condition makes us do this? I'm not sure I know the exact answer, but I think I figured out how to recognize the condition. If you're like me for the last 60 years, it's very simple. Contesting has been on my mind. And that's been true in the midst of some pretty amazing things. 1995 in Mogadishu, Somalia, I'm issuing an ultimatum to a group of warlords over there as we're getting ready to take the United Nations out. So we're having this conversation, and back in my mind I'm saying, 601, 37, north-south propagation, 4 feet WRL. I got this guy to sign something. I wonder if Dave's on the or later, 2000, briefing the president, going over there and talking about going to the Oval Office. So we call them Terrorism Tuesdays every Tuesday morning, going and briefing with the Attorney General and another CIA director and other folks about what's going on with terrorism. But all through that, contesting was always on my mind. So where's Ward? Ward, Willie Nelson, you were on my mind. You were always on my mind. If you can't make that into a contesting, sit down. Sit down. I'm not going to give you the mic. If you can't make that into a contesting song, I don't know what can. So why is that? Why do we do it? I don't know. It's can't explain it. Can't define it. It's a whatever. It's a passion. It's an addiction. But like you, I keep coming back for more. So thank you. God bless you all, and come back in 7 weeks to WRTC.
Gotta go back to work.
All right, enough of that. Start pulling out the tickets. All right, who here is from Canada who has not won yet? All right, this is your special time.